Hey, Jeff here. So, exciting time. Last night I went and got to see Stryper again in concert. They played over here down in the Outer Banks, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. It was an exciting time. So, if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you know that I'm a big Stryper fan. As a matter of fact, a couple months back, I did one entirely on Stryper, spotlighting them. Went through all my collection of vinyl CDs, everything that I had pretty much from them. Tonight I drug a couple extra little things out that I wanted to share, and as well as give a concert review of what I thought of the Stryper History tour that they are currently playing through. And so, yeah, let's do that. First off, a little back history. I've been a fan since the EP came out, since Yellow and Black Attack came out. I do remember seeing that before I had gotten much into Christian music. I saw that in a record store in the mall. And it would have been right after it came out. And it was in the independent section. And I've told this story before, so you may have heard it. Sorry about that. But and I looked at it. It was cool. Pretty much back in those days, anything that had the spandex and the hair and all that, I was buying if I didn't know the band. So I always looked in the indie section, looking for those smaller label releases. And so I saw that, and I said, well, they got the look, and they got the cool and everything, you know. And then I saw in the corner, too, the number one boss man, Jesus Christ. And I was a Christian. I was a church, but I had not had much joy in any of the Christian rock that people were trying to turn me on to. Everybody was always pushing Petra and stuff, but it was nothing compared to what I was listening to at the time with, you know, Motley Crue and Ozzy and all that stuff. It didn't even Kiss. It just didn't even come close. So I kind of blew this off, didn't know much about him, put it away. And then a couple months later, I guess for some reason I went ahead and bought it and fell in love with it and just wore that album out. Anyway, loved it. It was not too long after that, in late 85, when I basically rededicated my life and I got rid of all of my secular music and decided I'm just going to listen to Christian music. Now, at the time, the only thing that I had once I got rid of all of my albums, the only thing I kept from my album collection was the Yellow and Black Attack. Shortly after that is when Like Soldiers came out and all that stuff. I might have had a single or so from that because they were, you know, releasing some of the singles. But that was it. So then I went out and went to the local independent records section. Again, I had seen some of these, didn't really want to take a chance on them, but at that time I was able to pick up, you know, the first Saint album, the first Leviticus album, the first Messiah Prophet album, and 2 or 3 Barnabas albums. So my records went from I had you know, hundreds of vinyl to 5 or 6. Anyway, big Stryper fan from day one and just loved them. As far as seeing them in concert, I saw them in December of 1985 at Tulane University over in Louisiana. And then a couple months later, March 25th of 86, saw them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Went back, hung out backstage, back where the buses were afterwards for a long time after the show. Eventually they came out. We took pictures with them. They were real nice. They met with us. They took pictures and did whatever. Met a bunch of people. That was really cool. Quickly went and had those. This is back in the day when you had to develop the pictures. Quickly had them developed because then 2 weeks later on April 4th, also of 86, we drove over. I was down in Mississippi at the time, stationed down there. Drove over to Tallahassee to the Musical Moon, which I believe is now just called the Moon. It's a club still. April 4th, got to go there. We went there early in the day, figuring we'd try to meet him again. So we went there hours early, like during the day. It was like middle of the day. And we were standing around, and we saw the club, and we were kind of hanging out. And then we saw them come out. Actually, it was just Tim, Oz, and Robert. And they walked down the street. And we knew they were heading towards food somewhere. So we followed them without being too creepy. And they went down to the Pizza Hut down the street. So we went into the Pizza Hut and had lunch. And we sat within, you know, a couple tables away and kind of stalked them. But we didn't interrupt them or anything like that. And then we followed them back to the club. And then I guess they came out and they hung out for a while because they were just kind of hanging out. And Tim came out and talked to us for a while. Robert came out and spent the most time with us. He actually took us on the tour bus. Just to let us see the bus that they were using. And he talked to us for quite a while. Oz came out for a little bit, but then at the end of the night, we stuck out backstage again, and saw them again. Well, I think mainly Tim and Oz came out and spoke for a while to a bunch of people. Turns out Michael had gotten a real bad sunburn, and so he was kind of in a lot of pain, and so he didn't come out before the show. And then after the show, he had some guys basically with his arms on their shoulders carrying him to the bus because he was just in such pain from the sunburn. That's what we were told. He looked like he was in pretty rough shape. So that was a cool time. And at that show, at that time, I had those pictures with me from the previous show in Baton Rouge, and I had them sign it. So I have a picture that Robert signed with he and I, so that was kind of funny. People are always like, how'd you get it signed? Anyway, that's 2 weeks later. And then fast forward about another 10 months to February of 87, the Hell with the Devil tour, and we drove over to the Sanger Theater in Louisiana and saw them again there. I'm not thinking we met. I don't think we met them there. So, but that was then. And then you fast forward quite a few years when they started the 7 Weeks in America tour. When they got back together in that 2003ish year and started doing those tours, we saw them at Jack's in Springfield, and we actually saw them on the second night of that 7-week tour. So we saw them early on when they had just kind of gotten back together and were starting to do the tours. So it has been 16 years since I'd seen them. So when I saw them the other night, yesterday, it had been 16 years since the last time. But I tell you what, we all know that the music they've been putting out recently, for the past few years, in that time frame since the 16 years I saw them, I mean, they've put out quite a few albums, that stuff is just as powerful and great. It's just great stuff. It's not like they haven't even lost a beat. They're just going with it. Anyway, and that's how. Oh, and over the years, I figure I share this. Over the years, they toss out the Bibles. Over the years, I've got a couple Bibles. I was looking at these today. This one, this has to be from the 2003 tour, but all the Bibles are the same, so they just must have had them the same type. It's autographed. I need to stop and see whose autograph that is, but that is one of the more modern stickers. All of these are various aspects of the old sticker. Same type of Bible, though. I got a question for you. This is, you would think somebody with Stryper knowledge as me might know this, but I noticed this last night at the show because it's called the History Tour. So the banners they've got on the stage, I have all the albums, and the logos are everywhere. And I just noticed it. I was showing you this. And I'm wondering why this is. I'm sure somebody somewhere. I pointed out to guys last night who were with me, and they're like, "Yeah, only you would notice that." So this is the Stryper logo that is on pretty much everything. Now, if you notice, the top line is black across here. I mean, the T has the yellow, but the top line of all the letters is black, yellow, black, yellow. But I noticed on the big banners they had on the stage, it was the exact opposite. So I was looking at all the albums, and I'm like, every album has that black, yellow, black, yellow. It's black is the first thing, except Soldiers Under Command, which has like this. Yellow, black, yellow, black. I noticed that the banners had this color on it, but all the albums around the banners had that color. And then they had some carpets on the ground, and it had the color. I'm just wondering, what the deal there is. I had never really paid much attention to it, but why are there two different logos? Who made the mess up? Why does only one album have this and all the rest of them have that? One of those things. Maybe you know. If you know the answer, that's something I've never stopped to look at. I'm sure somebody in some forum somewhere has argued about it, or has debated, or this happened, or that happened, or they have a story to tell. If you know, put me something in the comments there. Now, I write for Heaven's Metal magazine. You may be watching this on Heaven's Metal's website. I plan on putting it there. I've interviewed Michael a handful of times over the past 10 or more years. Interviewed him last year for when the new album came out, and I've done quite a few interviews, and they're on the Heaven's Metal magazine website, heavensmetalmagazine.com. Never did ask him about that. I should ask him about that. So anyway, I am a big fan. Here's one of my little fan book things. Back in the 80s, when magazines were the big thing, Cream and Circus and Hit Parader and all that, me and a friend, we used to buy all of them. We'd go out and we would buy, I'm trying to remember now exactly. It was either 3 or 4 copies. I want to say 3 copies of every magazine. Because, was it 3 or 4? Whatever. It was more than one. Because a lot of the pictures we would put on our walls. So you'd have to cut that up. You'd have to have a second one because if you had a picture on the back you wanted to use, you'd have to have a second magazine. So we'd have, to, like I said, 3 or 4. And then we had these books where we took regular page protectors and then we took the pictures from the magazine and put them in like a scrapbook, photo album. I still have my photo album from Stryper. Now this was made, yeah, back when they were getting more popular. So, and it's in pretty old shape because of the protectors here. And it's magazine clippings from just all of the magazines. Now, then you get into some photos of the band. This is them playing at the Boathouse. I did not actually attend this show. This is actually local here in Virginia where I'm at. The Boathouse no longer exists, but a friend of mine went. He sent me these pictures back in the day. You can see the magazine. My book at some point got a little wet. Some of these pictures are messed up. But in here, I have mine. So this is how I was able to remember this. This is the one from Tulane University, and some of the photos that we took there. Didn't have the most horrible seats, but some pretty decent pictures. And then, remember back in the days when we had to actually print out the pictures like this? They weren't all digital on our camera. And then this was when we saw them here at the, that's the second one. I say that was the Baton Rouge. Quite a little bit further back, way back in the back on that one. Pictures are not that great. This is where we met them. This is Robert, and this is where I got the signature. You cannot see that, but it's there. It's there. Trust me. We met them there. Me and a bunch of the friends who went there. Oz, Michael, Tim is behind my head. This is me. This is little scrawny me wearing a Stryper shirt back then. And then the Robert and a friend of mine. So there's Oz, and they were all out there just talking to us. And then we saw them, like I say, at the Musical Moon. We were really close at this show. It was really nice. This was always one of my favorite pictures. I think 1 or 2 of these pictures you may find on the internet out there, because I used to share them in forums, and I've seen them pop on other people's faces. You know, I think, and this is a question for Scott Waters. On your No Life Till Metal site has a bunch of pictures. I don't know. Was it there that I saw one of these? I don't know. I saw one on somebody's site. That's cool. Anyway, and then like I say, beforehand we met him. This is a tour bus. There's Tim. There's Robert. There's me and Robert. There's me and Tim. There's Robert. Me and Oz. And there's Michael. See, these guys were helping him out. Anyway, so we got to meet him and everything. And then there's Robert and a friend of mine. And then we saw him, like I say, in Birmingham. Was it Birmingham? Sanger Theater in Louisiana there. Again, we were a little further back. But anyway, news clippings, just magazine clippings and all that fun stuff. So, used to have fun with these when I was a bit younger. And I bought this on eBay, I don't know, 10 years ago. Somebody was just selling clips from magazines, and so I bought it. It's just a whole packet full of magazine clippings, things I did not have. Some of these were fold-out posters. I put them up in my room, out in my music room, but it's just tons and tons of magazine clippings. But then when I was pulling this out and looking through it, I started noticing, anybody remember, or let's go back in the day. So I showed you the Bibles. These things I used to throw out too. These were folded up. These little yellow things have the logo on there. And look, it's got the yellow and black logo. And it's got little scripture verses and stuff. And the picture and numbers to call. So they used to do those earlier in their years. And so I have a bunch of those that came with the Bible. You got some order forms here for buying Stryper merchandise and stuff back in the day. Look at that nice typewritten, like a typewriter. Or, I mean, a dot matrix printer. Just all the cool stuff you could buy from the order forms. And then, who else out there remembers the day when CDs used to come in long boxes? I used to always cut the long boxes off the artwork and kept them because I always thought that was cool. So we got that. We got some In God We Trust. Basically, I put them together and taped them together because it would have sides and stuff. And this is what CDs would come in, for those of you who didn't know. They were pretty. They had additional artwork. To Hell with the Devil. Soldiers Under Command. So that was neat. I kept those over the years. So anyway, that's just some of the little knickknacks stuff. Back in the room, I have an old bandana from the '80s, and I still wear that occasionally. Like when I'm playing, if I'm going to be in a outdoor setting where I know I'll sweat, or just I'll wear that Stryper bandana. The way I fold it up, it's just black and yellow stripes. Anyway, so let's talk concert review. All right, here we are at the Stryper show. You probably can't hear. We're right up front. These guys are crazy. Big boy figure. You probably can't hear me. I'll have to add this later. Anyway, watch what's going on out there. So they're on this history tour. It's kind of labeled as like a best of. It's their best of with covers, because of course we know they did a covers album called The Covering. So it's kind of just like anything goes. And they played a total of I think it was 17 songs. And I tell you, again, I'm going to tell you, they haven't lost a step. They are just, they're as good, if they're better. I just think their newer stuff is just so much more mature sounding, but they sound so much better. My friends that went with me last night, huge fanboy. He has been a fan since they started, and since high school. For him, it was high school. All these years, huge Stryper fan, huge Michael Sweet fan. All these years, he's never seen him. Last night was the first time he'd seen him in concert, and oh my goodness, never seen a grown man so excited. The whole show, he was going nuts. He had a big grin on his face. He couldn't stop talking about it the whole hour and a half ride home. Man, that was the best show ever. He was elated because they were good. And he said the same thing. He said they sounded so much heavier in concert, which is typical when you start taking digital, overproduced albums like the early stuff. When you bring that stuff into concert with the modern sound like they've got now, it was amazing. They were heavy. They were loud. It was a small club. That was the only thing. It saddens me because when I saw them back in the day, all those shows I saw, the earlier ones not so much, but to Hell with the Devil, they went big, and next thing into they're playing 1,000-seat places, thousands of seats. They're pretty big crowds, and like I say, the stuff that they put out recently I think is great, but who's playing it? Sadly, the music industry doesn't give much attention to a lot of good music, and so they go pretty much. And there is no MTV to play videos anymore, so people don't really know. There was literally a guy at the show last night who I had a Stryper show, and he said, "Hey, did you see it? It said live in San Juan or something." He said, "Did you see them there?" I'm like, "No, I bought this offline." I said, "I've seen them 4 or 5 times and whatever." This guy said, "I was a fan back in the '80s, but I drove by this club just the other day and saw the sign. I did not even realize that they were still together. I didn't even realize." And that's sad. I know Eddie Trunk did a big thing on that. I won't even go into that. But people who don't stay up with it. It's sad, but there are fans out there who had kind of lost touch. Maybe they've gotten older, they've stopped listening to that kind of music, or if they do listen to it, maybe they don't follow it as closely as others, like me and stuff. So the bands are not being played on the radio. The bands are not being played anywhere, so you may never hear about them unless you're really searching it out, which, you know, if you really are a fan, you should be doing that. But some casual fans aren't doing that. This guy wasn't even aware that they had put out all these albums recently. Wasn't aware they were playing in his own town there. So he was there and he was excited. It's just sad the way the music industry is that they do that. And of course we say that it's about, you know, a lot of people are making it big in the industry. It's just not the bands maybe that we prefer. So it's just sad. So they do a history tour. It's supposed to be like a best of. And they like I say, 17 songs. They sounded great. I was right up front, as you see from the clips and stuff. I'm probably laying over this. And I'm going to give you some quick video clips. Probably going to get dinged on YouTube for copyright. But some of these are just, you know, it's cool. And they just sounded great. We were real close. It was just a real good sound. Now, like I said, Perry, you know, great. He did great. That was my first show seeing him play with them. And so, yeah, overall they sounded good. They sounded like themselves. The harmonies, the vocals. Everybody was on the top of their game. Great show. If you get a chance to see it, I think they're winding down. The last couple shows, but my only complaint, and I'll spend most of my time here, and it's a pet. It's not. I'm not complaining about the show. I'm not complaining. My preference would have been elsewhere when it comes to the set list. So it's a best of with some covers thrown in. So let's take a quick rundown of their albums. Okay. Their latest album, they just came off. This is, you know, Goddamn Evil. They just came off of this tour pretty much. So this is the album they're promoting. I would think that you would get quite a few songs here. Well, we got two. We got Sorry and The Valley. Great songs, but I don't know. I would have loved to have seen more of this live. Again, it could just be me. Maybe other people don't want to see it. I think it's a great album. I would have liked to have heard a little bit more of it. Fallen. Another great album. One song, Yahweh. That's all we get to hear from this is just one song. A lot of good songs in here. Would have loved to have heard more. Then you got Covering. This is the covers album. Expected to hear, you know, a handful of tracks from this. I don't know if I'd seen the set list somewhere or heard something, but you know, so I was expecting this. The show itself, though, had 6 cover tracks. 6. And the funny thing about it is only one of them from this album. So they played Shout It Out Loud, the Kiss track. The other songs that they played were not from this, but they were covers. They had Heading Out to the Highway by Judas Priest, Panama by Van Halen. I'm sorry, there was a second one. They did, yeah, this one has Heaven and Hell from here also. So there was 2 from this. Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath, Crazy Train by Ozzy. They did a Firehouse song, All She Wrote, because Perry's in the band. So yeah, so we get 6 cover tunes. Moving on to No More Hell to Pay. 0 tracks. 0 tracks from No More Hell to Pay. Another great album. it just seems if it's going to be a best ever history, you would think maybe 1 or 2 songs from every album, but 0 from there. Murder by Pride, 0 songs from Murder by Pride. Reborn, yeah, a lot of people may not like this album and probably don't care, but anyway, I think it's a good album. It's different, but 0 tracks. No tracks from Reborn represented in the tour. Against the Law, I know it's not Michael and them's favorite album just because they pushed themselves to change too much, but most everybody I know, this is one of their favorite albums. 0 songs. In God We Trust, of course, the set list was heavy 80s stuff. In God We Trust, we got 2 songs from that. We had In God We Trust, and we had Always There For You, right? Yeah. So, 2 tracks. To Hell with the Devil. Yes, he spoke about this being the big turning point for the band, where they took off. MTV, everything was big when it came to this.
And how many people here tonight have seen us before? Anybody? You didn't see us in Kitty Hawk, though, that's for sure. We've never been here before. We're happy to be here, man. Beautiful place. Now, who's never seen us before? And you're excited about that, yes. I'm glad you made it. Almost 36 years strong. We're still going. Started in 1983, put out our first album, released it in 1984. So basically what that tells you is one word only, 2 words. We're old. Yes. We've been around for a little while. You guys, some of you look our age though. In your 30s. Anyway, 1986, you guys, so it was a great year. One of my favorite years, and the reason why it is because we released an album called To Hell with the Devil. And that album, by itself, somehow, some way, miraculously, took us to new places and opened new doors. And we were able to go out there and, reach so many people and inspire and encourage people worldwide. And I don't know what happened with that. We were on MTV with bands like Motley Crue and Bon Jovi and Poison. And they had these amazing songs and amazing videos. And then this next song went all the way to #1 on MTV. All right, so you guys, if you know this one, sing it with us. Do whatever you want to do. Let's have some fun. Are you ready? This is Calling on You.
So we got 5 tracks from To Hell with the Devil. Now they did just do the 30th year, tour on this, 2016. But is what it is. 5 tracks from that. Soldiers Under Command, 1 track. The opening song, Soldiers Under Command, 1 track. Yellow and Black Attack, the first album that got it all started, 0 tracks. Now I did notice on the set list they had Whited Out Loving You, so they did have that on the set, but at some point they dropped that and they added Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath. So the show ends up with 0 tracks from the album that I wore out back in the day. And then this blew my mind, totally blew my mind. This album just came out a couple months ago. The Rock Regime demos I just got this a couple months ago. 0. They played 0 from this new album. Let that sink in for a minute. Anyway, I am not complaining about the show. It was a great time. They sounded great. Sorry, I just realized I never really kind of made my point with what I was trying to say about the tracks from the different albums. Again, minor grievance, not a complaint. Great show. But I just thought it weird that there were 6 cover tunes when there were so many of the other albums not represented. That's all I was trying to say. I would have loved to have heard more from, No More Hell to Pay. I wouldn't have minded a Murder by Pride. I would have even taken a Reborn. Against the Law, that would have been a big one. I would have loved to have heard a couple there. I just think, while it's neat, and they did the covers album, and I love it. They did great tracks. And even the tracks they played last night, which are not from the cover album, they were great. But, call me old school, but, when I came to see a Stryper show, it would have been nice if it was more, if it was more of that. And so the albums that weren't represented, I probably would have liked to have squeezed in some of those tracks. I mean, shoot, I would rather had another hour of the concert. They could have just done all the songs I wanted. But hey, I know you can't get everything you want, but that was the only thing I was saying. I would have appreciated, I like that they did the covers, but I would have appreciated it more had they done maybe one and did 5 more Stryper tunes from some of the albums that weren't covered. That's all I was saying. It was a great show. That was just my little grievance. Back to the regular program. I love Stryper. I support Stryper. I buy most everything they do. I go through the ups and the downs with them. I love their music, and I'm going to go to any show that comes close that I can get to support them. And we did this one, and it was great. And all the guys that I went with, I was the only one that had seen them before. Nobody had seen them before. And everybody came away saying that was just a phenomenal show. Just blew them away. Anyway, Stryper's the band. I love them. I have a link from my previous video where I did the whole rundown of all my music if you care to watch that. But anyway, great. My ears are getting back to normal where I can hear, not ringing so much. So loving it. So check out some Stryper. See them on tour and just enjoy because they are hot. Thanks a lot. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. Later.